Well, hi everyone, Sean Humphreys here. Welcome to All Things Retirement. In this video, we are going to discuss a very important question. Now, there's a lot of questions you need to begin pondering if you're 5 to 10 years away from retirement. But this one question doesn't just involve you, it involves your employer. So if you're not self-employed, if you don't have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you personally craft your transition into retirement, then there will be some questions and conversations that I would encourage you to have with your employer, because they may not think about retirement planning the way you do. Increasingly, many people want their retirement transition to be just that, a transition. They don't necessarily view it as a toggle switch. One day you're working full-time, the next day you're retiring. And there's a lot of reasons why people increasingly want to work longer. Maybe they don't want to do it full-time, but they still want to stay engaged in the workforce. And some of those reasons are pretty obvious. Sometimes it's financially related. People aren't ready financially to be completely retired. For some people, they view part-time income or contract income as a supplement for travel and other experiences, renovations that come up, upgrading the vehicle. And for others, it's just a way of working out in the real world their ability to make a difference, to have purpose and meaning. There's a social aspect of work, and they don't want to give up on those things as a toggle switch. Just, I'm here one day, I'm gone the next. But counterbalance against that is a subtle or not so subtle ageism that exists within organizations. Once you get to a certain age in some organizations, it's just assumed that you're going to retire. And sometimes there's pressure to make that decision, even if you're not ready. And your human resources department or your employer may default to the way it's always been done. And if there's been a practice of toggle switch retirement transitions, then they'll just defer to that. So because of that, don't make any assumptions about whether or not your employer is going to play ball with you on your desire to make it a transition, if that's one of your desires. Now, you need to begin having that discussion with your employer, and if you find that they're just not receptive to the idea, then you need to begin thinking about your own transition. If you're not ready to stop work completely, what can you do outside your current organization to have a side hustle, contract opportunities, employment opportunities that may not be with the current organization that you're working for? But your first default should be to talk to your current employer and see if they're willing to extend some flexibility around the transition that you're thinking about. Now, one caveat: even if your employer is open to the idea, you can't work out your retirement income planning based solely on that kind of transition. It assumes certain things. And what happens with a lot of people, it's not an insignificant percentage, is even though they want the transition to be gradual and to be a slow movement into retirement over a period of time, there can be extenuating factors that keep that from happening. It could be health issues, health problems, the lack of energy, the capacity to do work. Maybe technology has an impact in the workplace, which makes your skills irrelevant. And maybe as a caregiver, you have to spend more time with loved ones looking after their needs. So don't make the assumption that the transition can be gradual for you. It might be more of a toggle switch because of those extenuating circumstances. So it's important that you have a financial plan in place just in case you have to default to more of a toggle switch as it relates to the circumstances you find yourself in. So how can you go about this conversation? Well, I think that one of the ways you want to begin the conversation with your employer is to think through, what are the wins for them? They're running a business. Why would they want to go through the hassle of helping you with your transition over time? There's some very specific reasons that I think many business owners, if they reflect on it, would go, yeah, I think you've got a good point there. So one reason is many organizations that provide flexibility in terms of the retirement transition for their employees garner more loyalty. There are people out there with great skills that look for organizations that are flexible in their work time, in transitions through life events. And you can talk to your employer about the fact that they probably have better recruitment and retention opportunities if they provide flexible arrangements around the life transitions that people go through. And certainly transitioning into retirement is one of those life transitions. Now, another win for the organization to think about it as a transition is the retention of knowledge workers. So organizations invest a tremendous amount of money in building up skills, knowledge, technical expertise, credentialing for their staff. And the more they can retain those people for longer periods of time, the more productivity they'll experience. And again, this transition that's more gradual will help to retain that talent. There's no doubt that that can lead to a competitive advantage for the organization. It just doesn't make sense to spend all that money and then have people transition out quickly as opposed to a gradual transition. The other benefit of that when you talk to your employer is the fact that the knowledge transfer and the succession planning can be done far more effectively. So as you have this gradual transition and as you pair up staff for that transfer of knowledge, the training, corporate culture discussions, it just gets better transference if you can do it in a way that's intentional but over a period of time. And it seems to me that when it comes to that retirement, doing a toggle switch as opposed to a gradual transition is just not a good option. That transition gradually just makes the knowledge transference and succession planning much more effective. Another point that you want to make with your employer or the organization you work with is that studies have confirmed that gradual transitioning into retirement is actually just a better way of handling human resources and planning for those phased transitions where you have knowledge transference from younger staff to older staff that are transferring. And there tends to be much more collaboration and good communication between staff around their retirement dates, when they're going to retire, how quickly that's going to be. That just leads to better all-around conversations from an HR standpoint. In environments where it's a toggle switch, you tend to see pretty quick changes and transitions. The retiree kind of holds their decisions close to the vest because they're not sure how the organization is going to react. And then when they do inform the organization, there's these tight timelines often that they're working with to replace the person. That's all unnecessary. In a phased transition, it becomes collaborative. It's co-creation between the people transitioning into retirement and those moving into their positions. It's a far better way of handling most of these transitions within organizations. So in summary, phased transitions for retirement are not just good for you, but they're good for your organization. And the other important point about this conversation and getting it started is that you want to find out early enough whether or not your organization is receptive to this idea. And if they're not, if you have enough of a runway, you can begin planning what your exit strategy is going to be. If you're not prepared to be retired right away and you want your own personal phased-in transition, then you can begin exploring contract opportunities, side hustles, what kind of accreditation or certification do you need so that you can make that transition. You may leave as a toggle switch your current organization, but you already have a gradual off-ramp that's been put in place so that you can have the retirement transition that makes most sense for your circumstances. Well, it's my hope that you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed the video, click like, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you do that. As well, with the show notes, you'll find some really helpful links. So one link will take you to our homepage on our website that talks about our retirement income planning service. And if you're looking to get a free or complimentary retirement income plan, that homepage will discuss how you can get your free plan. As well, we have some education resources. Knowledge is power, particularly when it comes to the retirement journey. So there's some course content that you can access at no cost as well. Anyway, I'm wishing you all the best in your retirement journey. You take care.